It's true that some things change as we get older. But if you're a woman over 40 and you're dealing with insomnia, brain fog, moodiness, and weight gain, you don't have to accept it as just another part of aging. And with MIDI Health, you can get help and stop pushing through it alone. The experts at MIDI understand that all these symptoms can be connected to the hormonal changes that happen around menopause, and MIDI can help you feel more like yourself again. Many healthcare providers aren't trained to treat or even recognize menopause symptoms. MIDI clinicians are menopause experts. They're dedicated to providing safe, effective, FDA-approved solutions for dozens of hormonal symptoms, not just hot flashes. Most importantly, they're covered by insurance. 91% of MIDI patients get relief from symptoms within just 2 months. You deserve to feel great. Book your virtual visit today at joinmidi.com. That's joinmidi.com.
Hello and welcome to the Book Club Review. I'm Kate and this is the podcast about book clubs and the books that get people talking. We love to focus on the books that provoke conversation and debate, but what about the books most people are reading? Sometimes you don't want highbrow, you just want a page-turner. And we were curious to put some huge bestsellers to the test. Will we be won over by Dan Brown's latest, The Secret of Secrets? Did The Housemaid by Freida McFadden have us on the edge of our reading seats? While an all-star Hollywood adaptation never hurts book sales, did Andy Weir's novel Project Hail Mary live up to the hype? We're also wondering why it is that we don't automatically read the chart toppers. Are we literary snobs? Well, in this episode, we're determined to be open-minded. My pod co-founder, Laura, is dialing in from Vancouver, and we've got our most trusted reader friend, journalist Phil Chaffee, in the house. Were our lives changed by these books that have sold in their millions? You're about to find out. That's all coming up, here on the Book Club Review. Dan Brown, published in 56 languages with over 250 million copies in print across all his novels. The latest release, The Secret of Secrets, was an instant New York Times bestseller with an initial print run of 1.5 million copies. In the UK, it sold 77,666, is that significant? 666 copies in the first week. You might wonder why I'm wondering about the numbers. You read Dan Brown, you start seeing things in everything. So what happens in The Secret of Secrets? The main character is Robert Langdon. He is professor of symbology at Harvard. Is symbology a thing? I looked it up. Apparently it's not a thing. It's a Dan Brown thing, which he does quite often, where he takes something that sounds a bit like it might be a real thing, but actually it's not really a thing. Anyway, it is the study of... What is it the study of?
Symbols, surely?
I can't even define it. Yeah, it's the study of symbols. If you want to know anything about Langdon, you have to read the back catalogue, because all you get in The Secret of Secrets is that he is in Prague and he's staying at the Four Seasons Hotel, and he is not alone. He is accompanied by beautiful academic Dr. Catherine Solomon. Now, she is a noeticist. Is noetics a thing? Turns out, yes. Noetics is a thing. It's the study of consciousness, human potential, and the mind-body connection. But in real life, it's not really science in the way that Brown presents it in this novel. But anyway, so she's a scientist, and the two are in bed together, excitingly. But then Langdon hauls himself off to go swimming. Then he has a mysterious encounter on the way back. He suddenly realises the hotel is under threat. He races back to save the day, but Catherine has vanished. This kicks off a long chain of events, much dashing about across Prague. We've got good scientists, we've got evil scientists, we've got a mysterious, threatening figure called the Golem roaming around, we've got CIA operatives, and, parallel story, back in New York, we've got trouble at Penguin Random House, of all places, where the servers have been hacked and the manuscript of Catherine's unpublished book has been stolen. Why has Catherine's book made her a target? Will Langdon be able to save the day? You have to read it to find out, because I am not going to plot spoil it for you. That would be a crime. I will just confine my remarks to the writing and how I felt while I was reading it. The audiobook is published by Transworld Digital and narrated by Paul Michael. Here's a clip in which all is not going well for scientist Dr. Gessner of the mysterious Gessner Institute.
She watched the snow falling around her, or through her. And oddly, she sensed no cold at all. It was as if her mind were simply hovering in space, with all reason and logic intact. I have brain function, she told herself, so I must be alive. All Gessner could conclude was that she was now in the throes of what medical literature termed an OBE, out-of-body experience, a hallucination that occurred when critically injured patients were resuscitated after clinically dying. OBEs almost always presented in the same manner, the perception that one's mind had been temporarily separated from its physical body, floating upward and hovering without form. Despite feeling like real experiences, OBEs were nothing but imagined journeys, usually triggered by the effects of extreme stress and hypoxia on the brain, sometimes in conjunction with emergency room anesthetics like ketamine. I am hallucinating these images, Gessner assured herself, gazing down at the dark curve of the Vltava River snaking through the city. But if this is an OBE, then I must be in the process of dying. Surprised by her own calm, Gessner tried to remember what had happened to her. I am a healthy 49-year-old woman. Why would I be dying? In a blinding flash, a frightening memory materialized in Gessner's consciousness. She now realized where her physical body was lying at this very instant, and, even more terrifying, what was being done to her. She was on her back, tightly strapped into a machine she herself had created. A monster stood over her. The creature looked like some kind of primordial man who had crawled out of the earth. His face and hairless skull were coated with a thick layer of filthy clay, cracked and fractured like the surface of the moon. Only his hate-filled eyes were visible behind his earthen mask.
So the thing to say is that it's 671 pages long.
Oof.
It's a long book. And it felt it. And partly the reason it feels long is because it's funny, because so I had read the Da Vinci Code back in the day, and I actually quite enjoyed it at the time. It felt inventive. It was clever the way it was riffing on real things that we all vaguely knew or suspected about the Catholic Church. So it had this real, kind of, could this be true? And yet at the same time, it was just this crazy romp with these massively larger-than-life characters and all this code breaking. And I don't know, it wasn't too serious. And I did think one thing he did very well was that he does do these page-turning cliffhangers, and it keeps you hooked. It keeps you powering through. That's sort of what I expect from Dan Brown. And you get that here, but he does this thing, and I just don't know if it's typical to all his novels or whether it's just something he decided to do in this book, but he over-explains everything. You get so much detail about every single thing, whether it's the kind of doors a person is walking through or some big science lab that they're going to where you want a bit of detail. So it's indiscriminate, the level of detail that you get. And once you notice that, it becomes a bit tiresome. So actually, just to give you a sample sentence, there's one that made me smile, because once you've noticed it, then you see it everywhere.
It looks like diagrams and symbols within the thing, right?
There are a few almost like pictorial elements to it. You do get... So I feel, what are you expecting from a Dan Brown book? You're going to want some code breaking. Great, that's in there. You're going to want some cliffhangers. Yes, they're in there. Here, where they're just going through some doors. Above the main entrance, an elegant bronze panel announced the Gessner Institute. The bastion's door was a broad, stylish pane of reinforced frosted glass in a steel frame. It wasn't just a door. You've got all of that extra information about the kind of door it was, and he does this for everything. So there's so much detail. But also, the weird thing about the thing that takes away from any sense of propulsiveness to it is that it has this strange thing he does where something happens, but you don't quite know what's happened He then moves on to something else. And so arguably you've got a little bit of a cliffhanger there. But then almost immediately it goes back in time. And then you find out why the thing that just happened. And this is another thing that he does all the time. So every time you get a bit absorbed and you get a bit of momentum going, suddenly you have to stop and haul it back half an hour so you can rewind that character's experience and what they were doing and why they did the thing that they did and then why it ended up the way that it did. It's 670 pages, but a good third of that is just repetition with extra detail, so that there's no possibility of you not understanding exactly what has happened. So there's that. There's just the writing and the fact that there was something intrinsically boring about the way it was written, or maybe slightly exhausting about the way that it was written. And the other thing is, I think if you go to a Dan Brown novel, you want a formula, right? I was expecting it to be formulaic, but what I hadn't expected was like just how formulaic it was, except that the credit for the formula goes to Dan Brown. Right? It's the same formula as the Da Vinci Code. And I was really like, wow, is he still writing this book? Like, basically, there's been no change. But then on the other hand, you just think, of course, why would you mess with it? It's a fantastic formula that has garnered him 270 million sales. So, of course, he's not going to change it. But it's the other thing that makes it really boring, because you feel like you're having deja vu the whole time. It feels so familiar. Was there anything good about it? I quite liked some of the way that he takes real things that exist in the world and does this quite plausible spin on some kind of like secret inner agenda or thing that might be going on around those things. And I thought that was clever. But at the same time, I found it really unsettling, because I suppose the other thing that I felt was that at this present moment, with the world being as it is, the idea of some CIA conspiracy to unleash some terrible thing, I don't want to give too many details, but that is going to fundamentally change the way that humans exist on the world without anyone having said that they want this thing, is deeply unnerving to me, and I didn't really enjoy it. And I feel like I can't take something like that lightly. So there was this aspect to it where it was supposed to be this great sit back and enjoy the ride romp. But actually I was like worried by it. Could this happen? Is this happening now? So it was just unsettling. It was boring and unsettling and a bit depressing all at the same time. Was it
a slog? Did you want to turn pages or?
Oh, no. It's the opposite of something that's hard to read. Because as I said, everything is so over-explained that at no point are you required to do any thinking whatsoever. That was the other thing that really struck me. I feel like normally when you read something, it's implicit in the experience, and the way that the author writes the book is the idea that the reader is going to be doing some of the work, and that the author writes the text, but they're expecting the reader to, it's almost like they're throwing the ball and they're expecting the reader to catch it. And there's something about this that feels like he's not throwing the ball. He's marching over and like shoving the ball in your face and going, take it, can't you see it? It's here. And so you don't have to do anything. You don't have to think in any way, because everything is delivered to you, which I found really, who enjoys this? But then I feel like maybe sometimes.
Let's talk about the books and then get to the themes, because having dabbled in 4, I feel like I could now, I clearly couldn't write a thesis on bestseller lists, but things that you were saying are consistent with my experience. And I also now feel like I could write a bestseller. That sounds wildly optimistic. I think there's a lot of luck. Whatever I wrote wouldn't become a bestseller, but there's such a formula that I can see across them that I'm like, it's like writing by numbers. And ideally it's brand new. Dan Brown is still, when the Da Vinci Code came out, it was new. I read it on Christmas Day and finished it on Boxing Day, and it was fun and fresh, and I never read anything like it. I think I was like 14, but regardless, and he's pre-internet. I'm curious to hear about The Housemaid, because I wonder, a couple of the ones I've read started off online and now have crossed over into print and are bestsellers, having already had a strong digital following. Dan Brown was pre-online publishing and so forth, so he's just legacy. Where does The Housemaid fit in this universe? How did it come to be a bestseller? Do you know?
I don't know the backstory. Do you know, Kate? You read this as well.
In the 2025 UK annual bestsellers, The Housemaid was among the top 3 most sold books, just behind Richard Osman's The Impossible Fortune, with around 342,899 copies sold. It became a New York Times bestseller with an exceptionally long run, reported at over 141 weeks on the New York Times paperback bestseller list, and even now, it's still at the top. It sold more than 2 million copies globally. So yeah, that sort of gives us a sense relative to Dan Brown where Freida McFadden sits, but it doesn't really explain why the Housemaid took off.
I'm also
in the way
looking at the book. She has 15 other books, none of which I've heard of. So I think it's safe to say she was slogging along and then something just clicked.
She does write under a pseudonym. It sounds like she is actually a doctor.
What?
And
Oh, you didn't know this? This is the interesting thing about Freida McFadden. Yeah, totally. She's a doctor and she just churns out these thrillers on the side. It's the most incredible thing. She writes them for fun.
That blows my mind given some of the criticisms I had of this book, but
bring it on, Phil. Come on.
Okay, so let's hit. First of all, not everybody has read The Housemaid. Tell us what The Housemaid is about.
So it's basically this knockoff of Gone Girl structurally. The premise is there's a maid, she's forced to live in the attic of these very rich people, and then the wife is very mean to her. That's the first half of it. But there's like such obvious misdirection that you spend the whole time thinking, okay, what's the other shoe? What's it going to be? And then it just, the other shoe, it's like the very preposterous sadism, but paired with some very bizarro misunderstandings of human biology, which is why I was so puzzled. But she doesn't understand how hydration works, or rather dehydration. There's a couple other sadistic things that just make no sense biologically. So I'm very puzzled that this woman is also a doctor.
It's a bit difficult to talk about them, isn't it, without spoiling the
Yes.
plot? It's funny you say about there being such obvious misdirection, because I read The Housemaid because my daughter had loved it and she gave it to me, and I pretty much read it in one sitting on the sofa, absolutely romped through it. I haven't read Gone Girl. It was not obvious to me, the twist when it came. I have to say, I didn't see it coming. Phil's looking at me like, I can't believe you didn't see it coming. But I was just really, I remember putting the book down and going, whoa, when it happened. And I enjoyed the thrills and spills of it. And I didn't worry too much about the physiological details and whether or not she got that right.
That is not my main criticism. I think while I was reading actually both of these pulpy bestsellers, and we should probably distinguish between the pulpy ones and the non-pulpy, but I have this little checklist for what makes enjoyable pulp. The first of which is the language cannot be distractingly bad. No one goes for it for the best prose, but it can't be like, oh my God, why am I reading this sentence? I feel like Dan Brown sometimes falls down on that front.
Oh, yeah.
The second is you're also not reading it for interiority or for three-dimensional characters, but the things the characters do, they can't be completely capricious. They can't just be at the service of the plot because you need the character to go somewhere. They suddenly decide to do that. The second that happens, I feel like it just falls apart. It pulls you out. And the third thing I don't think is fully necessary, but for good enjoyment, I feel like you need some sense of place. The Housemaid has none of the third. It is all of the details. The man who owns this mansion is a big CEO for a fancy company. That's all we learn about them. They're on Long Island, outside New York, but when they're going go to the theater, he's like, oh, the parking on Broadway is always bad. Nobody ever would ever say that. They say the parking in Midtown, it just doesn't scan. It doesn't make any sense. None of the details, like there's just no color. It's just like the whole thing just felt like it was written by a 12-year-old. There's no detail. There's nothing to sink into. There's no sense of place. And yeah, then just with the broader preposterous plot, I was really struggling with this one. I thought it was a real clunker.
I'm laughing because I feel like me, when I was trying to talk about Dan Brown, you start off being quite reasonable and we just descend into these like, and it does this, and it does this. Laura, perhaps you can temper the mix. What one of your four are you going to talk about first?
Goodness gracious. I should start with the one that I actually did finish, which was In Your Dreams by Sarah Adams.
I haven't heard of this at all.
It's around, full disclosure, I can't even find where I saw it. It was on a list, and I assume it was the New York Times, because that was my list. She has written many books, as I said to start. This is the fourth in a loose series about these siblings in small town Kentucky falling in love. I just want to preface all of this is that I did not start this undertaking thinking I was going to come out snobby at the end of it. I was all in. I was like, awesome. It's January and Kate wants me to read bestsellers because I read a ton of bestsellers. I have read all the Emily Henry books. I have a high tolerance for commercial fiction when I have the itch to scratch. I was like, great, sure, I'll read Sarah Adams' In Your Dreams. This sounds super fun. I love a lighthearted romance. It was so boring. So boring. It's about a young woman who has left her town in Kentucky and she's gone to chef school in New York. Zero atmosphere of New York, Phil. The same thing where you're like, this author has never been there and isn't even trying to give an impression of what it might be like. And then she's crashed out. She's been bullied by a chef. So she's come back home, or she's thinking about coming back home when she misdials like a friend of the family who they've always had a weird relationship. And she calls him by mistake instead of her sister. They have brief words and then he calls her back and he says, what's up? And he can tell she's in distress and she won't tell him exactly what's going on. But he basically is like, oh, well, I'm opening a restaurant on my farm. So maybe you can be the head chef. And it's really quite clear that there's something dubious going on here in terms of this restaurant that he sounds very vague about the details. And then she moves back home and there's a restaurant and like nothing happens other than working towards it opening and pretending that there isn't huge sexual tension with nothing happening. What you want in romance novels is kind of a reason, to your point, Phil, like in anything, you want like a reason why they aren't just opening up about their feelings. Because otherwise he couldn't possibly be doing these nice things because he's into me. Because we always joked around and he always ribbed me when we were younger. And you're like, come on, like how dumb are you? And vice versa, guys. But ultimately, there wasn't enough plot to keep me hooked. There wasn't enough sexual tension. There wasn't enough sex. I'm not saying like I need a lot of sex, but there's one or two scenes. I think this is the point of some romance. And I think the first one is like 70% of the way through. There was nothing clever about it because Emily Henry is not a great writer, Kate. Like I've totally take that on board, but at least she can create a construct, a plot construct that is interesting.
Yeah, I would concede that.
I just watched People We Meet on Vacation on Netflix, which is infinitely better than the book because it's got good producers, good actors. I'm not saying it's great, but it's highly entertaining. The reason it works is because there's a good plot construction there that actually translates into film where it gets the better treatment. There's none of that in this book. And the writing is dire, just so bad. And I do have, let me find my little snippet. The two love interests are walking through Central Park. We continue to walk for a bit, and I wait for her caffeine high to kick in. Everything is green. The trees are big and beautiful. And everywhere you look, someone's doing something interesting.
That was written by a 12-year-old. Wow.
The trees are big and beautiful, and everywhere you look, someone's doing something interesting.
But if it was Dan Brown, it would be like the large pine, green needled trees with 8 squirrels were in the distance as they walked along the lightly gravelled path. Is it cozy?
It's supposed to be cozy.
People
right?
go a
Like
long way for cozy.
Yeah, and I get that. And not all protagonists in romance novels need to be young urban professionals, right? I'm okay with that too, but at least make it interesting. I'm into cozy small town romances in theory, but give me a character I actually can connect with or care about. Do you want to hear about my other escapades?
Yeah, what's next?
So what I started with, and again was reasonably into, was Alchemised by SenLinYu. And I did message you guys about my early forays into this. It's a bestseller. It's in hardback. It's about 1,000 pages long. And it was originally written online as Harry Potter fan fiction, which I don't really understand because there's nothing Harry Potter... Like she rewrote it effectively. Started off as Harry Potter fan fiction. And then it got a following. And then she completely rewrote it. So there's 0 Harry Potter references. And again, it did well, and she's now published it, instant bestseller. So dark. It's dark fantasy, and there's necromancers. And Kate and Phil may bring this up. I have read about lesbian necromancers in a different book.
Tamsin Muir, this is.
And it was quite gory and violent. So I have it in me to go for some dark fantasy if it is, I don't know, if it's got good characters and it's funny or there's something there. But it was so gory and dark with just essentially torture. Shall I read a little?
Yeah, let's hear it.
One thing I should also say is that the main character of Alchemised has been brought out of a coma, or they've been like put into stasis. They have some memories, but other memories have been erased, which is relevant to Project Hail Mary, and I'll come to that. But she's a prisoner, and she can remember a war where everyone she loved was killed. So she's in front of the head necromancer, who says, "I see now that I have been too generous," Moro said. His nightmarish face and looming eye sockets emerged from the shadows. He tilted his head as though staring down at Mandel. "You are not worthy of my gift." "Please, Your Eminence, I beg of you, give me." Mandel stopped speaking as she was jerked up onto her feet by an unseen force. The front of her grey uniform tore open as her ribs unfurled in a gush of blood. Her chest rent apart. Helena's skin crawled, terror slithering like a worm through her gut as the warm, wet smell of fresh blood and exposed organs permeated the room. I'm like, oh my God, is this going to go on for 1,000 pages? What is wrong with people?
Opposite of cozy.
And coming back to what you were saying, Kate, even about Dan Brown, I'm like, are regular, I don't want to say regular readers, but people who read a lot and very widely, there's some stereotypes about us being sensitive introverts who read a lot as kids. And with these bestsellers lists, it's a much, much bigger reading pool. Maybe on average, people are just less sensitive. They're like, whatever, I watch this on TV. Like, why would I care about reading it in a book? I have very different reactions to, I wouldn't watch it on TV or in a film either. So I didn't read that. Then I moved on to Dungeon Crawler Carl, which again, I thought I was going to really like.
So what is Dungeon Crawler
And
Carl?
is it really a bestseller?
I don't think that's come out here in the UK.
Oh my gosh, it's a huge bestseller, and I think there's 4 or 5 of them, and it's being turned into a film or a series. And I was just reading an article in the New York Times. It's the big crossover hit of an acronym I'd never heard of, Lit RPG. And I was like, what's that? Role-playing games. So I had that thought independently that this reads like a video game, which I'm not that averse to. Stuart Tartan, who wrote Evelyn Hardcastle.
Yeah, and the one about the ship, too.
And her 9 Lives.
But he's a very good writer.
Yeah.
Yeah, but some of his books do read like video games, but they're very complex puzzles of video games. And so they're enjoyable, and I have no problem with that. This book has been compared to A Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy because it's like, it's funny, whimsical sci-fi. And I was like, okay, great. So the premise is that Carl, who's our hero, he has stepped out of his home in the middle of a freezing night in Seattle to get his girlfriend, who he's just actually broken up with, Kat, who's jumped out the window. And because he's in his bare feet, maybe boxers, and because he's outside of the house, he isn't killed instantly by an alien invasion, which flattens every single living quarters roof in the world. So if you're in a car, if you're in a bus station, if you're in a house, it's flattened as if a big metal flattener has crushed your home. And then these portals open up, or gateways down into the world with lights and heat. And given he's in his boxers and bare feet, he has to go into one or die from hypothermia. And it turns out he's walked into an alien, essentially a video game, a reality show, where along with, I think it's like 13 million? I don't know. Where all the remaining humans who have gone into these portals will be competing to get down through the dungeons and out the other side. But most of them are just going to die along the way. And then effectively, it is a video game. There's long descriptions of his interface and what he can see and how he can power up. Important to say that his ex-girlfriend's cat has also joined him, who becomes a more dominant character or presence than you might think a cat would.
I never considered myself a big fan of cats, but if we're being truthful here, I liked Donut. That cat did not give 2 shits about anybody or anything, and I could respect that. If Donut wanted to sit on my lap while I was blasting away on PlayStation, then she sat on my damn lap. If I tried to pick her up, she hissed and scratched and jumped right back up there. And then she looked at me with a squished face that said, "What are you going to do about it?" I'd been tempted, more than once, to throttle the thing. But I'm not an asshole. Plus, I could respect the little monster's tenacity. Some of my buddies would give me crap about it, me spending all this time with a fuzzy cat that was probably worth more than I would make in a year. But I enjoyed it. I enjoyed having that ball of fuzz sitting in my lap. One of Beatrice's ironclad this-is-not-negotiable rules was no smoking in the apartment. So after our fight and breakup, I'd made a point of smoking as much as I could. I know, immature, but it was freezing outside. Donut didn't seem to like the smoke too much, and the smell clung to her hair. So, as a compromise, I would crack the window when I smoked. So, when I woke up at about 2 a.m., having been startled awake by a dream, I decided I needed a smoke. I pulled out my pack, cracked the window, and I lit a cigarette. Donut, who had been sleeping right next to me on the bed, decided at that very moment that she wanted to, for the very first time in her feline life, go outside and explore.
Jeff Hayes there, reading from Dungeon Crawler Carl, published by Audible Studios.
It's not very well written, but what actually got me was the casual, offensive, violent language. I was just scanning a few things on Google. You know how Google will feed you questions? Is Dungeon Crawler Carl racist? Was the first question that people also ask. And it says, this book and the whole series thus far has some anti-capitalistic themes, but is wrapped up in casual racism, sexism, and fat phobia. It's otherwise a relatively entertaining and fast-paced lit RPG. I was like, no. And then I did skim. I read maybe 10, 20%. I own a copy now. It's got quite a fun cover.
Yeah.
This is the
the
Canadian
cover's
American
good.
version. But I couldn't go on. And then I flipped to the end because I was like, this is going really slow. What sort of resolution are we going to get about his time in the dungeon if there's another 20 levels? As far as I could tell, I'm not even sure he left this level of the dungeon. So there's going to be like another 20 books. And
Still on level 1.
He's still on level 1. And the New York Times article was he's a hero of Comic-Con. Someone was saying this is the first fiction book I've ever read. It's not for us. It's not meant for us, clearly. But yeah, there's just some ickiness that other people are obviously picking up on, whereas like, I don't need to spend time with this. And then finally, Project Hail Mary, which really I should have started with. It's on all the bestsellers lists. It's being turned into a film with our friend, gosh, what is his name?
What else did Andy Weir write? He wrote
The Martian.
The Martian, which Matt Damon.
Oh, it's not Ryan Reynolds, it's the other one.
Exactly. Ryan Gosling. Okay. It's being turned into a film with Ryan Gosling. His previous book, The Martian, featured Matt Damon. I think this is a prime example of someone who can tell a good story that then easily translates to cinema. I asked my brother if he'd read it, and he's, oh yeah, I read that. I really enjoyed it. You'll like it. And his wife was like, yeah, I read that too. And it was the fourth one I picked up. If I'd read it first, I probably would have maybe had a different perspective. But it was so poorly written. It was so boring. The beginning premise was that some high school teacher who used to be in academia gets approached by the leader of the world's... Okay, take a step back. Essentially, the Earth has about 10 years left to survive because they have identified, I don't know if it's like a dark radiation or light, but something between the Earth and Venus, and the sun is dimming. Like the sun is very rapidly losing its energy, and it seems to be getting sucked into this line of space. And when the first mission comes back, it looks as if it might be life, some form of life, but small, micro, tiny, and being sucked into it. And the main character is a high school teacher, but who in the past wrote an article about how he believed that life could survive without water, without all the determinants that the rest of the scientific world believed was possible. And so the global initiative goes to recruit him to their cause out of his high school career. And I get it. Like, that's a fun premise. But at this point, I was like, that's not realistic. I've lost all my tolerance for a lack of realism. And I should say, that's not a spoiler, but it gets teased out because it opens with this main character not remembering his name or where he is. And then you're getting drip fed his memories to how he got there. He's the last living person in this, what must be assumed a spaceship. And you assume they were heading to go communicate with this alien life form, but the others have died and he's left.
What's 2 + 2? Something about the question irritates me. I'm tired. I drift back to sleep. A few minutes pass, then I hear it again. What's 2 + 2? The soft, feminine voice lacks emotion and the pronunciation is identical to the previous time she said it. It's a computer. A computer is hassling me. I'm even more irritated now. I say. I'm surprised. I meant to say, leave me alone. A completely reasonable response in my opinion, but I failed to speak. Incorrect, says the computer. What's 2 plus 2? Time for an experiment. I'll try to say hello. I say. Incorrect. What's 2 plus 2? What's going on? I want to find out, but I don't have much to work with. I can't see. I can't hear anything other than the computer. I can't even feel. No, that's not true. I feel something. I'm lying down. I'm on something soft. A bed. I think my eyes are closed. That's not so bad. All I have to do is open them. I try, but nothing happens. Why can't I open my eyes? Open. And open. Open, dang it. Ooh, I felt a wiggle that time. My eyelids moved. I felt it. Open. My eyelids creep up and blinding light sears my retinas. I say. I keep my eyes open with sheer force of will. Everything is white with shades of pain. Eye movement detected, my tormentor says. What's 2 plus 2? The whiteness lessens. My eyes are adjusting. I start to see shapes, but nothing sensible yet. Let's see. Can I move my hands? No. Feet? Also no.
Ray Porter there, reading from Project Hail Mary, published by Audible Studios.
If I'd picked it up at a beach or secondhand or just in the bookshelves in hotels when you're on holiday and you're like, yeah, I'll read this, might have loved it. But I feel like reading this many bestsellers has killed me. Like, it made me hate reading. I just like, thank God I had an audiobook to snap me out of it, because I was like, oh, reading does not fill me with joy. Why do I ever read books? They're so boring.
I felt like I wanted to be wrong. I wanted to be reading Dan Brown and to come back and say, hey, this was so much fun. You know what? It's not serious. You have to take it all with a pinch of salt, but I had a good time. And I'm just disappointed that actually it was boring and slightly exhausting experience. Phil, have you got one more? What else have you been reading?
I have one I can perk us up a bit because I'm positive about.
Is there some good news on the horizon?
So my second one I read was Nobody's Fool by Harlan Coben. Are you guys familiar with Harlan Coben?
Never read him. Thriller writer?
Thrillers, yeah. Generally, I think not really series, although it turns out this is the second one with the same detective-ish guy.
I have tiny amount of Harlan Coben facts. His books have collectively sold over 90 million copies worldwide. And yeah, at time of prepping this episode, he was number 2 on the Sunday Times bestseller list.
He also, I think, has this big production deal with Netflix to turn a lot of those into Netflix little miniseries because they really fit the format. They've all got good hooks, fun little thrillers. I think I watched one of those and then just knew he was at, obviously, any airport. There's Harlan Coben's there.
That was your gateway. You watched one Harlan Coben thriller and now you're in. That's how they get you.
I don't know if I'm in, but let me read you the dust jacket description of this plot, just the hook. Sammy Kearse, a young college grad backpacking in Spain with friends, wakes up one morning covered in blood. There's a knife in his hand. Beside him, the body of his girlfriend, Anna, dead. He doesn't know what happened. His screams drown out his thoughts, and then he runs. 22 years later, Kearse, now a private investigator, is a new father who's working off his debts by doing low-level surveillance jobs and teaching wannabe sleuths at a night school in New York City. One evening, he recognizes a familiar face at the back of the classroom. Anna. It's unmistakably her. As soon as Kearse makes eye contact with her, she bolts. For Kearse, there is no choice. He knows he must find this woman and solve the impossible mystery that has haunted his every waking moment since that terrible day.
Nobody's Fool is read by Vikas Adam and published by Hachette Audio and Grand Central Publishing. Here's a clip.
I stand behind the tree and snap photos of license plates with a long lens camera. The lot is full, so I go and order from the most expensive car. I can't believe there's a Bentley parked by this toilet, and move on down the list. I don't know how long I have before my subject, a wealthy man named Peyton Booth, comes out. 5 minutes, maybe 10. But here's why I take the photos. I send them to my shadow partner at the DMV. Said partner will then look up all the license plates and get the corresponding emails. She'll email the pics and threaten exposure if they don't transfer money into this untraceable Cash App account. Only $500. No reason to be greedy. If they don't respond, and 90% don't, it goes nowhere. But we make enough to make it worthwhile. Yeah, times are tough. I'm positioned across the park and dressed like what we used to call a vagrant or hobo or homeless. I forget the proper euphemism they use nowadays, so I ask Debbie. Unhoused, Debbie tells me. Really? Unsheltered, too. They both suck. Which do you prefer? Goddess. Debbie the goddess says she's 23, but she looks younger. She spends a lot of her days standing in front of various, gentlemen's clubs, talk about a euphemism, with tears in her eyes and yells, "Daddy, why?" at every guy that walks in or out. She started doing it for kicks. She loves the way some guys turn white and freeze, but now a few of the regulars say hi and maybe throw her a 20. I do it as an exercise in capitalism and ethics, she tells me. How's that? The capitalism part is obvious. Debbie has good teeth. That's rarely the case out here. Her hair is washed, she's sleeveless, and her arms are clean. You make money, I say. Then. And the ethics? Her lower lip quivers. Sometimes a guy hears me and runs off. Like I knocked some sense into him. Like I reminded him who he should be.
So it's a fun hook. You're sort of, what's going on? What could this be about? And it gets very Baroque. There's another mystery thrown in there. So there's an A plot and a B plot. He runs all over New York. It gets international for a bit.
Does he get New York details right?
He doesn't get them egregiously wrong. It's it feels like it's okay, that's fine. It's not this beautiful, beautiful wealth of knowledge where it's really amazing, but it doesn't immediately put your back up. So basically, check my checklist, my little three tick checklist. Prose isn't amazing. The characters are not fully three-dimensional, but the decisions all make sense within the context of those characters. And yeah, there was some sense of place. And there was also just some sense of like making jokes. And there's a good time. And as I turned the pages, I was enjoying myself. And yeah, there's some preposterous plot. Like the actual plot of this murder mystery is pretty silly. That's the nature of it. I don't begrudge it that. But no, I had a good time. If I was somehow stuck, I would probably pick up another one of these at the airport. And I think it would get me through a flight. So yeah, I think it did everything it needs to do. Is he, who would I put, like a Mick Herron or a Tana French, someone who actually I think is a very good writer and really can take pulp and take it to this next level? No, but I think Harlan Coben does feel like a safe pair of hands for not just egregiously effing it up.
Will you be reading more of his oeuvre?
Again, if I'm desperate in an airport. Otherwise, I will not be seeking it out.
I want to acknowledge perhaps the elephant in the room, or that listeners might be like, hey guys, you're not really thinking about this. Literacy rates are like dropping. And actually, the language that is in lots of these books is very accessible to many people who could not easily or with pleasure probably read the books that we do. And that may be because of a lack of education or ability. You can edit this, Kate, if you think this is not respectful. But
I'm just thinking about it. I'm thinking about it.
You can just think about interest, right? I do think like my husband is not a very strong reader. That's okay. He also does not love reading. And they're probably two sides of the same coin. Like,
But-
he would
but-
be a
but-
stronger
but-
reader if he loved it.
That answers its own question. If you're not a strong reader and you don't really love reading, and the one time you do try and read something, you read Dan Brown's The Secret of Secrets, you're not going to feel any differently about it. You're going to find it hard work because it's 671 pages, and you're probably not going to feel like reading another.
According to the person who was discussing Dungeon Crawler Carl, that was the first fiction book he'd ever read.
If you look at Goodreads, like I did go and look at The Housemaid, and there are lots of people that changed their lives. And I'm sure Dan Brown the same, where people are just like, whoa, that's amazing.
It didn't change my life, but I had a good time reading it. I think I wrote quite an enthusiastic review on Instagram. I wonder what I said, actually. I should fish it out. This is my real-time reaction to The Housemaid.
So maybe what I'm trying to say is there obviously are value judgments we're making here, but I can also step outside those value judgments and be like, I care about writing a lot. I care about the quality of the fiction. I generally, when I read, want to spend time with authors who are way smarter than me so that I feel like stimulated and, oh God, I don't even know if I'm quite getting this, but that it's challenging. Not everyone wants that. And other people are just interested in different forms of entertainment or world building or etc.
I found my review that I posted just after I'd read The Housemaid. I put, I'm not generally much of a thriller reader. I don't like tension. But my daughter loved this so much, she read it 3 times and wanted me to give it a try. We meet Millie, a young woman currently living out of her car. She's desperate for paid employment, and when an interview comes for the position of housekeeper to a wealthy couple, she's determined to make a good impression. Never mind the creepy room in the attic with a door that only locks from one side. There's a huge amount of foreshadowing going on, leading to many exchanges where I asked my daughter why on earth Millie was going along with it, and she looked wise and told me to keep reading. It's not a book you read for the exquisite prose. McFadden's day job as a doctor specialising in brain injuries, knocking out clever thrillers is something she does on the side, but I found it perfectly readable and way better than many other things that topped the bestseller list. I put Colleen Hoover, say. What made this so much fun was the way you think one thing is happening and then suddenly, plot twist. It turns out something else is going on, and this happened again and was, frankly, a riot. Reading it felt like watching a good Hollywood popcorn movie, a fun experience that isn't particularly going to stay with you. It's all about the ride while you're on it. Looking back, I'd have to concede that the characters were absolutely paper thin. In a movie, the actors would give them inner lives, but that isn't happening on the page. Normally this would bother me, but I was way too busy wondering what was going to happen next. I'm not going to rush to read any others by McFadden, but I did enjoy this dip into best-selling waters.
I feel like that's more positive than you've been on this show.
I'd be writing a very different review of Dan Brown. The only thing that comes out well out of The Secret of Secrets is Prague, where it's just hilarious. The whole thing is sponsored by the Prague Tourist Board. It checks off every single significant Prague landmark that there is. And some egregious product placement, like at the end, there's this mysterious little chapter he's put in, which is all about Starbucks, like his favourite branch of Starbucks and the logo. What is that doing there? Yeah, it was a funny experience reading it. I'll tell you what I wanted to mention while we're on the subject. Another one that I've read that I did enjoy that's been on both New York Times and UK bestseller lists, and that is The Correspondent by Virginia Evans.
I wanted to prompt you about that.
Well,
That
so-
feels like cozy fiction, but fairly critically acclaimed. I don't know. You tell
Yeah,
me.
the first thing I'd say actually is it's not cozy. I had thought it was going to be, and actually it very much isn't. That was interesting. But yes, this is an interesting one because it's one of those books that is doing well through word of mouth and through recommendation. And people are like, oh, have you read it yet? Oh, I read The Correspondent. What have you thought? And it's just picked up momentum, and then that has carried it to the bestseller list, where then it becomes like its own momentum because everyone's like, oh, it's a bestseller, I must read it. It's an epistolary novel. You meet this older lady who is writing these letters to all kinds of people, and you get not only the letters she's sending out, but you get the replies as well. So you get quite a nicely rounded picture of her and the relationship she has with people and the way that they respond to her. You get the sense quite quickly that she's effectively keeping the world at bay through this correspondence. And then there are some actually quite dark things going on with her life. One of them is to do with loneliness. She lives a long way away from both her children who've moved away, and she's aging and she's alone. And also she's got some quite serious health issues that are something that she's having to process and deal with. So there are some things going on in these letters. And actually, on that level, it wasn't cozy at all. It's in a way quite dark. But there is something about the joy of correspondence and letter writing and how meaningful that can be. And the way that these things are preserved, it's not like sending an email, it's not like sending a text, it's not like DMing someone on Instagram. There's something about crafting a letter and writing and putting your words and your experience and your feelings down on a page and then sending that to someone that is so beautifully encapsulated in this novel in quite a subtle way. She's not bashing you over the head with it. It comes through very naturally and very organically. And when you finish the book, you've been on this real journey with this main character and you feel enriched by it. And what you mainly feel you want to do more than anything else is just write to someone. It makes you want to write to someone. And I love that. And I think that for me is perhaps where I come down on almost like the value I would accord these different kinds of books, is that the Dan Brown, not only did it not give me anything, I felt like it took something from me. It took energy and it took time. It takes just as long. It takes exactly as long to read a bad book as it does to read a good book. You don't read a bad book any more quickly, maybe if you skim. That was my observation. It's a 671-page book. It took me the same amount as it would take me to read something good. Maybe even longer, actually, because I kept putting it down. Or actually, I fell asleep a lot. I was like, my consciousness is just trying to escape. Whereas a good book gives you something. A good book will enrich you in some way, whether that's from the pleasure of the sentences and the way they've been crafted and the language that the author is using and the words that they have chosen to convey their meaning. And that sense of you meeting that author on that journey and you adding your own imagination and you bringing the book to life with the information that you're given on the page. And it will leave you with something. You finish a good book and that book is going to have changed you slightly. It's going to have left you with something that will form a part of who you are. And that's why I think readers are the best, because they get more interesting as they get older, readers. Because we are the sum of all the books that we've read. And it just takes time. It just takes a specific amount of time to read a lot of stuff. And you can either read stuff that gives you something, or you can choose to read things that take something away. And I feel a thing I think is a real shame and that troubles me is that I want people to have that good, enriching, wonderful reading experience. And I don't want them to be reading these books that do the opposite of that.
We are readers, we are pure readers, but I think you're missing the point is that many people cannot read what we are saying are good books. This is sobering. Maybe you haven't seen this because you're over in the UK, but American students have regressed, this is in relation to the literacy levels, to a level not seen in 25 years or more. Test scores from the National Assessment of Educational Progress, released this year, show that 33% of 8th graders are reading at a level that is below basic, meaning that they struggle to follow the order of events in a passage or to even summarize its main idea. So when we're saying, oh my goodness, these authors are just spelling it out, there's a huge cohort of readers who maybe want to read, but who need that. It's just challenging because, yes, I found that as I have 2 English degrees, I've made reading, it's not my profession. I've dedicated enough time to it that it could be. And similar to you guys, there's a different type of book that we want to read.
If you've been enjoying the book club review and want more, head over to our Patreon. You'll get ad-free episodes and extra content made just for subscribers. Me and Laura swapping recent reads, themed episodes around prize shortlists, and chats with people from the book world. There's a brilliant archive there to dip into when you join, and plenty more on the way. You'll also get access to our chat threads, which update regularly. Recent additions include Poetry Club, where we swap poetry we've loved, and Cover Appreciation, a place to share those books where the cover has caught your eye. But the real highlight is our book club. At the higher membership tier, you can come and talk books with me in person. This month we've been reading Big Kiss Bye Bye by Claire Louise Bennett, described in the TLS as love, sex and friendship for a high priestess of isolation. Next up, we're tackling the winner of Australia's prestigious Stella Prize, Theory and Practice by Michelle de Kretzer, which Ali Smith called a lightning strike of a book. What will our book club think? We meet on the last Sunday of every month over Zoom with a catch-up episode posted for anyone who couldn't make the live session. And new this year, available to both paying subscribers and those on the free tier, are my reading diaries, a weekly peek behind the scenes into my everyday reading life. It's a brilliant community of fellow readers and listeners, and I would love to see you there. Find out everything that's on offer and how to sign up at patreon.com/The Book Club Review. Right, back to the show. And if we're dismayed at the quality of these smash hit bestsellers, what do we think people should be reading instead? I was going to ask you guys then, I'm putting you on the spot, I didn't forewarn you, but I've got one to fill in while you think of one. But if we're saying, like, if I'm saying, okay, I don't want people to read Dan Brown, what do I think they should read? And I have the best suggestion. If you like Dan Brown, why don't you read The Count of Monte Cristo? What
Some 19th century language?
It is so good. You may have heard about it on this little podcast called The Book Club Review, where someone called Phil Chaffee named it one of his books of the year. What genre? Every genre. It's such a fantastic page turner. It's easy. It's really interesting. I was thinking a lot about actually Don Patterson and almost like his factory that he's got for churning out books. And Alexandre Dumas did that back in the day. He was like the OG person who came up with that idea. He had a kind of studio of people who wrote with him, but his name was on the books. To give it credit, it's the brilliant page turner. It's got these larger than life characters that aren't complicated or particularly nuanced. You don't have to pay that much attention. It really is just fed to you, but in a way that's delightful and entertaining and romantic and exciting and exotic. And it's just fun. It's just a lot of fun. We're doing it as a read along with the Patreons. And one of the issues that I've had is that we're supposed to be only reading 100 pages a week, and people are romping on. One person, Charlotte, has finished Monte Cristo very quickly and then read The Three Musketeers. It's like, I can't hold them back. So that would be my suggestion. I urge anyone who wants a really good page turner to seek out The Count of Monte Cristo. It's everything Phil said it was and more.
I agree. It's very fun. It does have a slightly higher price of entry, like some grounding in 19th century history, right? Like you're going to be a bit confused.
Maybe
it ends
Napoleon,
with
and the 100 days.
Yeah. If you don't know what that is.
But I didn't really know what that was, but I didn't let that worry me. I was like, oh, they got rid of him. He went to St. Helena, right? And then he came back.
Well, Elba first.
And then they got rid of him again. That's all you need to know.
It's tricky. It's tricky, I think, this one, because I'm not just thinking about page turners, but I'm trying to think about accessible page turners, which are hard to think about retrospectively.
Yeah.
Because there's some books, right, that you don't even notice the language. It might be quite simple in terms of its prose and words choice and easy to follow. You're not noticing that because you're just along for the ride. So it's hard to think back.
I'm looking at my bookshelves for inspiration. Julie Cooper up there. I recommend Rivals to anyone.
Julie Cooper, Stephen King. Like there
yes. Stephen King.
Yes.
Mind you, though, dark, but Pet Sematary, I couldn't believe how good that was.
Yeah, he's a really good writer.
He's really good.
He's a really good writer, and he's accessible. His book on writing, actually, is the one I remember most. I have read some of his others, but I think in quite simple, straightforward language, he creates some long-lasting imagery. And that's one of his superpowers, is that somehow it sticks in your mind visually long after you finish the book.
I love thrillers.
I didn't really know that about you.
That's usually my bedtime reading, some thriller. I did 2 years ago, went through all of the Smiley books by Le Carré.
Oh, yeah.
And I love Le Carré. I think I put him in more like high literature slot than pure thriller, but they are thrillers. Who I would not put in higher literature, but I think is really fun. It sounds like you like Emily Henry, Laura, for romance. But I was thinking maybe a comparable in the thriller category is Ruth Weir, who's written a whole bunch of pulpy thrillers. And they all have fun little conceits. Some are mysteries, some are not. A bunch have been adapted, but they're good. And they're Harlan Coben level good. But you're not looking for that. You're looking for high literature that people would grab onto.
No, not necessarily. I'm just thinking about those books that have mass appeal, but where the writing is good. And they do exist. My eye just fell on The Time Traveler's Wife by Audrey Niffenegger. I love that book. I've read that book so many times. Have you not read it? Laura's shaking her head.
I didn't like it.
You didn't like it? No.
Yeah,
but
it's schmaltzy.
Oh, it's such a great love story. And it's about time and death. These are the great themes. And I thought she tackled it beautifully. Yeah. I was thinking about thrillers as well. Willie Lawton, have you read him?
No.
Oh, he's so good. Oh, I can't believe you haven't read him. Mind you, I've only read one, but the one I read I loved. Wait, let me just fish out the name. And is it thriller or is it noir? That's the other question. So the one I read was The Night Always Comes, which is absolutely brilliant. The writer's based in Portland and the books are set there. I'm not sure if they all are, but certainly that one was. And it was just a fantastic page-turning thriller that absolutely had me glued, cared so much about this main character and what happened to her. But also it's just so interesting. Not only the main character, but all of the other characters were really well-rounded and interesting, even though you didn't necessarily like them, but they felt like proper humans. And also there's a really interesting political agenda to that book where he's really looking at people who are struggling to make ends meet, and where when you don't have a lot of money, that can lead you into some fairly desperate choices, and where that main character ends up. And I was absolutely hooked. He's got a new one just out, which my friend Gary, who does the books quiz, has read and says is absolutely brilliant too. So if you're a Willie Vlautin fan, apparently that one's great. And Phil, I recommend you try him.
Check him out.
What about the Underground Railroad? I want to offer something. I feel like that's a page turner. It's got a lot going on. People really love it. And the writing's strong, but not blow your mind literary.
Maybe. I don't feel like Colson Whitehead is easy, though. Do you know what I mean? Like it's slightly effortful in a good way.
We might have to do a follow-on.
We're going to have to think harder about this.
Yeah.
Hey, you know who we can ask? Listeners, if you have suggestions for bestsellers, but the ones that you really think, yeah, you know what, that was a really great read. Our minds have gone blank. You know why? Because we're just numb. The reason we're numb is because we read Dan Brown. Who was the guy with the cave novel? What was it?
Cave novel?
The video game. Was it like Caveman Dave or something?
Dungeon Crawler Carl.
There you go.
Caveman Dave. The sequel.
I'm going to write a novel. I'm going to call it Caveman Dave. I would circle back as well to something you said quite early on, which is that when you were reading these books, it made you feel like you could write a novel. I never, ever have the feeling when I'm reading something that I could write that. I'm always so humbled by people who can write novels and slightly in awe of their ability to put sentences together in this way that these extraordinary stories emerge. I did not feel that when I was reading Dan Brown. I had the same thought as you, which is that I could write this.
Yes. Yeah, I'll just stick some puzzle pieces together, ripping off different genres. And
I know it's like the difference between modern art is I could have done that, yeah, but you didn't. That's what makes an artist. That's what makes Dan Brown a multi-million copy bestseller. But
maybe this is my final reflection on that, though, is like how much is luck involved?
Yeah.
Because I do wonder like how many people like Sarah Adams are writing romance. Probably far more than could possibly ever get to the top of the pile. And it just so happens by a fluke of fate that Sarah Adams has ended up there. But that is no guarantee in bestseller world that it is any way better than a host of others that could have maybe by chance filtered up there. It feels really arbitrary.
Or Alchemised, where it feels like for some reason that is striking the right note for a lot of people right now, but it's hard to put your finger on why.
Yeah, and credit where credit's due. Matt Dinnerman has done something strange and fresh, to use a marketing term, and it found a following online. The same is true of SenLinYu's Alchemised. People want those stories, and so they've crossed over. I just don't think that's the case with Sarah Adam. I think it's a bit more of a fluke.
What did I ask at the beginning? Are we literary snobs?
Yes.
I think the answer to that is yes.
Quite clearly.
Sorry.
But we, without value judgment, we don't think we're better. We just acknowledge our own snobby biases.
Were our lives changed by these books that have sold in their millions? No.
No,
Other than
not.
making us think we could cynically write some books under pseudonyms.
What are you going on to read now that you're coming out of this bestseller pit?
Thank God, yes. So it took a while. Like literally, I looked at these books on my bedside table and was like, oh, I just don't want to read. But then a present that my husband had pre-ordered for me, he didn't realize he was pre-ordering it at Christmas time, but it hadn't yet been published. It arrived. And it is also 1,000 pages, similar to Alchemised, but it is highly critically acclaimed. It is called Ice by Jacek Dukash.
Ooh, wait, I looked this one up. It's Jacek Dukai, and it's translated by Ursula Phillips.
A dazzling journey to an alternate Siberia. The 1908 Tunguska comet changes the direction of history and gives rise to a weird new reality in this acclaimed epic from the Polish author. And so we're in an alternate history of the world. It's July 1924, and our protagonist has just been not abducted. He's in Warsaw, and he's just been harangued by the chinovniks of the Ministry of Winter, who take him to the Russian headquarters and say, you need to go to Siberia. You need to find your father, who he's long estranged from. Now, in that passage from his home, where it's freezing cold, but we also learn it's summer, to the ministry, we're introduced to this alternate world where from the comet, it would seem, this is as far as I know, ice forms have been introduced, and they're called the gleis, and they move very slowly. Unclear how big they are. Maybe, I don't know, 4 meters by 4 meters, maybe smaller. And they gravitate towards human habitation. I'm being a bit vague because it is very hard to talk about the author making you work. You're trying to figure out what world you're in, but their coldness cannot be measured. It's basically, if you get too close to them, you'll immediately freeze and die. And so people haven't been able to measure, but they're changing weather. They cannot be stopped. They cannot be controlled. I do love the fact they're very slow moving. So it's not as if you can't avoid the threat, even as it's completely transformed human life. It's also very intellectual. The protagonist is a mathematician, and I am reading at bedtime, but I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. I like to the point where I'm like, Phil, can you read this? And I think you should. I think both of you should give it a try. But I'm like, I can't follow this. But that's okay. I'm along for the ride.
Well, that sounds good. Phil, how about you?
I just finished The Virgin in the Garden, which is the first of the Frederica Potter Quartet by A.S. Byatt. I have a friend who loves Byatt, but particularly loves this quartet.
Yeah.
Have you read it?
I've read one of them. And I
Presumably
also
this
really
one.
enjoyed it. I guess, probably, yeah.
The first one.
Isn't it where she goes to university and...
Oh, that might be the second.
I think I've
actually.
read the second one.
Okay. Yeah, so this one starts, it's in the coronation year of Elizabeth II, and it's set in Yorkshire, I think, following Frederica Potter and also her family. Across the year, she is the Virgin in the Garden. This sounds like a 90s teen comedy, but she wants to lose her virginity. And she's 17, I think, but it's really gorgeously written. And I will be going forward to read the rest of this quartet this year.
Great. That's unimpeachably highbrow, isn't it? I am very excited to start reading something now that finally I could put down Dan Brown. The thing I've got coming up that I am also going to send your way, Laura, because I have 2 copies of it and it's very exciting. I have a proof of the 3rd volume of Layla Slimani's Moroccan trilogy.
Oh.
We loved In the Country of Others, and then the follow-up, Watch Us Dance. So The Country of Others was Layla Slimani's grandmother's generation in Morocco, and then Watch Us Dance was her parents' generation. And in this new one, it is the daughter's generation. So it's her own generation, which is the one probably I'm most looking forward to reading. I read a little bit of it. I'm just so happy to be back in Layla Slimani's incredibly capable hands. The prose is beautiful. It hooks you in right from the start. So that's called I'll Take the Fire, and it's coming out at the end of April, but you will get to read it sooner than that.
On a final note, do you not think that The Perfect Nanny stroke Lullaby, depending on which market you're in, is a very good page turner? It's fairly simple, clear prose. It was a crossover bestseller, but also solid literary accomplishment.
Yeah.
We've done it.
This
There
is
you
her
go, guys.
novel about the nanny that kills her children, and I think it was such a shocking subject for a lot of people. I thought it was such an excellent book. I absolutely loved it. But I just wonder whether people were then put off reading the Moroccan trilogy because of having had the experience that they had reading Lullaby.
Oh, I think they're different readers.
But it's just so interesting to me that the Moroccan trilogy is completely different. It's very sweeping, immersive family saga, and it's nothing like Lullaby, except that the writing is also very good.
But you can't sell it with a pulpy
No,
tagline,
no,
which
exactly.
Lullaby you certainly could.
Exactly. But I think if you like Elena Ferrante and you haven't read this trilogy, give them a try. Read The Country of Others, because I think you will love them. It's that territory for me. Anyway, and on that note, we're back in our comfort zone.
We're back. Yeah, absolutely.
Thank goodness. All right, this has been a lot of fun.
Thanks, guys.
Absolutely.
Thanks, bye. That's nearly it for this episode. You'll find all the books mentioned in the show notes. Next up for us, it's February, and what better time to consider the romance genre? I'm joined by author Lucas Oakley, whose debut novel, Nearly Departed, uses some of the tropes of romantic comedy to tease out thoughtful literary fiction, exploring love and time. 2 of the great themes, if you ask me. We're using the book as a jumping-off point to recommend some of our favourite romantic reads. Don't forget to check out the Patreon for all the extras on offer to subscribers. I've got special episodes coming up with 2 subscribers who also happen to be bookshop owners. Elk Books in West Ferry, Northern Ireland, and Hey Books in San Diego. Is it not every reader's dream to own a bookshop? I so enjoyed hearing about what it's like when you make the leap from dream to reality. And of course, they both gave me the inside track on their favourite books to hand sell. For book club this month, we're reading Theory and Practice by Michelle de Kretzer, which so far has proved a popular choice going by the chat thread. It's not too late to join in. In fact, it's the perfect time. It's not a long read and the writing is beautiful. There's going to be plenty to dig into when we discuss it on Sunday the 1st of March. So come along. I would love to have you there. My trusty Patreons also came into their own when it came to reminding me about bestsellers that are also great literature. Captain Corelli's Mandolin by Louis de Bernier, The Covenant of Water by Abraham Borghese, Slow Horses by Mick Herron, books by Robert Harris or Patricia Cornwell, Demon Copperhead and Maggie O'Farrell's Hamlet all came up. Meanwhile, Nicola reminded me of Aussie publishing phenomenon Trent Dalton and his book Boy Swallows Universe, winner of the ABC Australia Best Books of the first 25 years of the 21st century. She says it's entertaining, well written, a page-turner and accessible. If you want to get in touch to let me know your recommendation, drop me a line at thebookclubreview@gmail.com or find me on Instagram at bookclubreviewpodcast. And at this point, let me say a huge thank you to all my paying subscribers. Your support enables me to spend my time working on the pod, in addition to giving me the great pleasure of being part of such a brilliant community. Welcome to recent subscribers Jessica, Joanna Marie, Carrie and Curly. It's lovely to have you on the Patreon, plus all the friends who have recently come across from Substack. If you enjoy the show and want to help me out, one free way you can support me is to share the episode on your social media channels and tell your bookish friends. As I often say, much to my dismay, I meet people all the time who I think would really enjoy the show who have never heard of it. So if you can pass on the recommendation, you're really helping me out. But for now, thanks for listening, and until next time, I wish you happy book clubbing.